All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Monday, February 12th. Happy Monday to everyone out there. We got a nice big NBA slate to dive into in today's video, like we always do. When we go through each and every one of these games, I'm going to give you my lean on the spread. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player props that I like within the game. But as always, keep an eye on the pinned comment of this video for my final plays. If you do want to fade me and do the opposite, keep an eye on that pinned comment. In terms of yesterday, we go 1-1. We just split the half unit there, so really one play was on Drew Holiday, but we split the unit and kind of tinkered with it. We didn't hit his over in rebounds, but we did hit his over in rebounds plus assist. 6 and 3 is what I believe he finished with there. But we didn't want to get aggressive on a 2-game NBA slate with afternoon games, right, before the Super Bowl. And by the way, hopefully I'll never have a fun and safe and enjoyable Super Bowl. If you're rooting for the Chiefs, you cashed. I wasn't really rooting for the Chiefs. That is who we bet on if you watch the Super Bowl video. I was kind of like, all right, win-win situation. I'll bet on the Chiefs, but I kind of want Niners Nation to win this one. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs got the job done. But nonetheless, guys, we got a new day to talk about here. But unfortunately, we have to recap one last thing. A ride of the day. And a womp is in order. James giving us over 2.5 3-pointers made. Kevin Huerter finishes 0 of 3 from deep. Now, what I'll say in James's defense here is that this was a plus 136, I think is what I got it at, plus 136 play. So it was kind of a flyer anyways, and I appreciate the long shot play here, but does not come through. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, all you got to use is hashtag ride of the day in the comments. I'm going to be picking one person's play, jumping on board with you, and then you get a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you win, we celebrate. We continue to ride for the coming days until you lose, but if you do lose, you gotta face the womp. Also shouting you out over on my Twitter at EvGuyBoston if you guys do want to follow me there. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and hitting that like button as well. Smash that like button, guys. But let's go ahead and jump into game number 1 here. We got the Charlotte Hornets taking on the Indiana Pacers. Right now, this spread is a big number, and because it is such a large number, it had me kind of going back and forth here, but I ultimately am going to lean towards the Pacers minus the points, just because you cannot really trust this Charlotte team. Yes, it is a massive number, and I get that, and honestly, Charlotte, in their last 4 games, would have covered this line, plus 11, but this Pacers team is just starting to get healthy. Halliburton's still on the injury report, and he's a little hobbled with a hamstring, but even last game, I think he played nearly 31 minutes, so he should be good to go, and if this team is healthy, you look at that starting lineup, and it's Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, who's been playing better, Siakam and Turner. Like, that's a pretty damn good team. So I'm going to trust it. I'm going to fade Charlotte here, even though they do have some new faces, and even they are starting to get a little bit healthier. But I'm going to fade them and lean towards Charlotte, and lean towards Indiana here, excuse me. In terms of the total, I don't mind looking at the over of 2 teams that don't play much transition defense, and you know Indiana's going to want to get into transition, right? Last 10 games playing with the 6th fastest pace out there, and Charlotte, who was sort of in the bottom 10, is kind of creeping up into that mid-range of pace teams, 18th right now in terms of pace, so still bottom half of the league, but like I said, right in kind of the middle of the league there. So if this game starts running, I don't think either team's going to prefer to play defense, right? So I'll lean slightly towards the over here in this spot, and ever so slightly. Like, I think this could be like a 245 game max from a total perspective. And then from a player prop perspective, nothing really jumped out at me, so probably sticking away from player props. This isn't the best game on the slate anyways. There's some good spots today, which obviously we'll talk about. This isn't exactly one of them. All right, next up, we got the Cavs taking on the Sixers here. Another big point spread, but, I mean, how can you knock it, right? This Cavs team is on absolute fire. They've won 9 straight games. They've covered in 6 of their last 10. I think it's actually 6 of their last 9 throughout those 9 as well. And Philly's kind of doing the opposite. So they had a nice win against Washington last, but prior to that, they had lost 4 straight games, had just won 1 of their previous 9. Like, this is a Philly team that without Joel Embiid, like, we're still kind of figuring out what the hell they are, right? Like, yes, Tyrese Maxey's good, Tobias Harris has stepped up, but this is a team that is much dependent on, no kidding, right? An MVP caliber player, one of the best players in the world, and when he's out, they struggle. So it's no surprise to me that Cleveland's 10-point favorites. These two teams are like moving in opposite directions, so I'll lean Cleveland minus the points in this one. I don't necessarily think that becomes a final play, I'll tell you that right now, because this Philly team is still gritty, and Cleveland, like I said, 9 straight wins, but they have not covered in 3 of those those wins, right? So there's times where they play a little bit closer altogether, right? In terms of head-to-head here, this game was close. Now, this is a little misleading because it was back in November, but it went to overtime, 122 to 119. So these two teams do match up well. Now you're going to not have Joel Embiid, like I mentioned, which is a pretty big deal on the Philly side of things, but figured I would mention that last time they played, it was a close game, went to overtime. Total sitting at 230. I like the under in this spot. This Cleveland team, I'm trusting what their defense has become. Like, this is I would say, a Cleveland team that's returning to form. Like, last year, they were so good playing defense, right? And then for the early part of this season, it was like, where is that Cleveland defense? And now it's starting to come back. Over their last 5 games here, in terms of points per game allowing just 101 to opponents. That's the best defense in the league over the last 5 here. And to this number, right? To this number of 230, they've cashed the under in 7 of their last 10 games here, 7 of their last 9, in fact. In Philly, yes, they play with pace. They've been playing up-tempo basketball, but if I think Cleveland kind of dominates the pace of play here, they're going to pull this one down. In terms of player props, I'm liking, and we keep fading this guy, and he's burned us a couple times, Tyrese Maxey's under 3.5 rebounds. Reason being, Cleveland over the last 7 games here, 3rd best team in preventing point guards from grabbing the rebounds, right? And then if you look at it from a rebound volume and just a rebound chance perspective, he's only averaging 6.3 rebound chances per game, and he grabs 50% of those, averaging 3 rebounds over his last 10 here. So I don't think that he's going to go and grab, another one. That'll be a huge percentage jump from 50 to whatever that is. 4 out of 6. So he also had 1 million rebounds last game. So it's kind of like, all right, he's not going to go do that 2 games in a row, is he? I don't think so. So I'm leaning towards Tyrese Maxey's under in rebounds. The only thing that could keep me off of that, and just being honest, is the fact that we're looking at a guy that, or actually, at the end of the day, it's just a really low number for a guy that's super involved, right? Like, the ball could find him 4 times and it blows us under. So I'm leaning towards it. Keep an eye on the pinned comment to see if we do end up pulling the trigger on it. All right, guys, let me take a second to talk to you about OddsJam. If you have not tried out OddsJam yet, now is the time to do so. You can use that link in the pinned comment. You get 7 days free, and if you sign up using code GUYBOSTON, you'll get 25% off. GUYBOSTON is that discount code. Right now, we're on my favorite tool, or one of my favorite tools that OddsJam has to offer. They have a bunch of tools to help people like you and me become more profitable sports bettors, but this is the positive EV tool, pretty much identifying all of these missed price lines in the market, using sportsbooks odds against them here. For example, this is a soccer play, right? First half goals over 1.5 is plus 120 over on FanDuel. If we open this up, it's plus 105 on some sportsbooks, or on most average sportsbooks, right? So you have a plus 120 on FanDuel, way mispriced, because this one's near even on most sportsbooks. Similar to here, right? Plus 174, you're getting almost 20 cents of value in this. Plus 174, most sportsbooks have it at plus 150. Now, these are not guaranteeing that they win, right? But, you're using the sportsbooks odds against them. If FanDuel, DraftKings, and say Fanatics price something at minus 110, but all of a sudden you can go over on ESPN Bet and it has it at plus 110, it's like, yeah, I think we'll take that, and we'll take that slip up. So go ahead and check out OddsJam, guys. Again, that link is in the pinned comment. You get 7 days free with that link, and if you do sign up, use code GUYBOSTON, and you'll get your first month 25% off. Go ahead and check it out. Now let's go ahead and get back to these games. Next up, we have Atlanta taking on Chicago. Right now, Atlanta sitting at 4-point favorites at home. Total sitting at 238 here. We'll start with the total. This is a weird one to me because I look at this and I say, okay, Atlanta is obviously a high-flying team playing with a lot of pace. Over their last 10, they are the #1 pace team in the entire league this year. But Chicago isn't really playing that fast. So I'm going to lean towards the over because I do think Atlanta controls the pace of play here at home and everything like that. But it could be a completely trap line here because, yes, you look at 238, and that's actually, I guess you could make the argument that that's a lower line that Atlanta has had to deal with as of late. Their last, I want to say their last 10 games, that's the lowest line they've had, right? So it's like, okay, now are we kind of taking the bait and taking the over, whereas Chicago just slows this game down like they like to do? Potentially, but I like the over 238. That's probably my first look in this game, and I don't mind Atlanta -4. I just got finished telling you that I think Atlanta controls the pace of this game, right? So why wouldn't I lean towards them laying the points at home? The one concern is that this is an Atlanta team that, no matter how you want to cut it up, has been so bad against the spread this season, but as of late, they've been better. They've covered in 6 of their last 7 games. They've won 6 of their last 7. They've won, or I think it's 5 of the last 7. They've won 2 games against Philly, Houston. Sure, not the best of competition, but they covered covered against Boston before those 2 games. Maybe Atlanta's starting to find some sort of a rhythm here. And these season-long trends numbers against the spread are going to be kind of damning to them because they're not really accurate anymore. We'll see how they progress moving forward. Obviously, we do have the All-Star game and everything kind of leading up to, so teams might start to slow down and take it easy, but as of right now, this Atlanta team seems somewhat trustworthy against the spread, and we're laying those points tonight. In terms of player props, nothing jumped off the page to me in this spot. Kobe White is questionable in this one. Caruso is questionable. We did hit Caruso, what was that, a couple days ago, right? His over in PRA. That was a good look. I might consider something like that again because these games with a lot of perimeter play like Atlanta is, like Caruso is super involved in those games on the defensive end, but that kind of leads to him being involved in the game overall. And if you're going to continue to give me, I think I just saw it earlier, his points, rebounds, and assist line, if it's going to continue to be right around like 15, I do think that there is some value in taking a peek at that. So again, nothing jumps off the page to me, but that's just something that I considered amongst my research this morning. All right, next up we have Toronto taking on the Spurs. I smirk when I say this because this is actually a spot that I really like in today's game, today's slate. Looking at Toronto -6, which I can't believe I'm saying like, oh, I'd really like looking at Toronto in this spot because they've been inconsistent as all hell, covering in just 4 of their last 10 games, winning just 3 of their last 10. But you flip over to San Antonio and they're actually like a worse story, right? 2-8 in their last 10 straight up, 3-7 against the spread. So maybe this is a spot where Toronto can match up well against them. Toronto is healthy right now too, nothing on the injury report, and I just think that this is a good matchup. Like Jakob Poeltl doesn't have the length or height over Wemby. He should be a little bit stronger, right? Scotty Barnes should be able to have what he wants against Sohan. RJ Barrett, Trenton quickly. Like I don't see the defense of Trey Jones, Vassell, and Champagny, stopping them. So I think this could be a good spot for the Toronto Raptors, and it's also another spot that I'd continue to keep an eye on RJ Barrett's numbers. His lines are getting a little bit inflated here. 31.5. We like that PRA line. That's what it is. 31.5 at 29.5. We've cashed it a few times this year. I also don't mind his over 9.5 points, his rebounds plus assists here, as over the last 10 games here, RJ Barrett for rebound chances. RJ Barrett, 13 rebound chances. So we can say that he's going to get, 6 rebounds, hopefully, right? And then from an assist perspective, he's averaging 6.5 potential assists. So we can look for him to get 3-ish rebounds. So all of a sudden, that is a floor of 9 rebounds and assists, right? And if he gets one more throughout the game or one falls to him, should cash. So that is a spot that I'll look there. This is obviously a San Antonio team that allows any stats to any position as well. So we like that. Now, in terms of the total here, like I said, I like Toronto, and for whatever reason, I'm pretty heavy on them. Like that's probably going to be a final play. The total here at 236. This is where it gets a little interesting for me because San Antonio plays 0 defense. But Toronto does not play with much pace at all. So even if Toronto can get whatever they want and score wherever they want, I don't think that they push the tempo. So I'm going to lean towards the under in this spot as well. But like I said, I kind of smirk when I'm giving this confidence because at the end of the day, you're still betting on Toronto, who just has not been it this year, right? Like it's tough, but I think that this is a team they match up well against. All right, we got Houston taking on the Knicks here right now. Houston getting 4.5 points at home total, sitting at 222. I like the Knicks in this spot ever so slightly. Like if you're on, or actually, you know what? I misspoke there. I like the Rockets in this spot. However, if you are on the Knicks, I'm not going to try and talk you off of that. But this is a Houston team that, tale of two teams. Like on the road, they stink. At home, they're not all that bad. And that's just kind of what I'm looking at here. This is a Knicks team that has dropped 3 of their last 4. Obviously, they've been kind of banged up. Jalen Brunson not on the injury report here, which is obviously good for them. But not having Julius Randle is obviously a huge hit to them. And Hartenstein's game time decision as well today. So is Sengun, so we're going to want to wait that out before we play it. But like I said, if you're on the Knicks, I'm not really trying to talk you off it. I could see this game going both ways. I just happen to be on the Rockets. And then from a total perspective, 222. It's a low number, right? But you have 2 teams that play, Houston's actually been playing fast, but not all that efficient. But again, they've been on the road, right? So I think when they return home here and they're going to be at home, they're going to play a little bit slower. So I think I'm going to lean towards the under, but kind of iffy on that one because of that line. Now, if that was obviously right, if it was a higher line, I'd love it. If this was 228, I'd like the under, but I could see this being like a low-ish paced game, grinded out game, and still finishing like, 113 to 110. And it's like, wow, yeah, that hit the over, not by much. So I think that's probably going to finish in the mid 220s there, but probably doesn't make its way to our final plays anyways. A player prop that I don't mind is actually looking at Josh Hart over 8.5 rebounds. Yeah, sounds like a high number for him, but over his last 10 games here, the dude's averaging 15 rebound chances. He's grabbing 65% of those, and Hartenstein and Sims are both on the injury report today. Obviously, Hart not a big man, but if both of the the second string and the third string bigs for the Knicks are out here, and you just have Precious Achiuwa and Josh Hart grabbing the boards, some more could follow his way. So 8.5, huge number. I totally understand that. I'd also consider, I think something, that could be sort of a pivot to that if you don't want just that one stat. Could be looking at his over rebounds plus assists, but that's at 13.5. Like, that seems fairly high. So I think I may just stick with the rebounds here. I also don't mind his assists. Like, I'm liking Josh Hart to be involved, not necessarily from a scoring perspective, but to be involved overall. All right, Memphis 9-point dogs at home taking on the Pelicans here. Total sitting at 223. In terms of injuries, Zion Williamson is on the injury report here. He sat out last game. We'll see if he plays here. And then Memphis, we don't really need to read through that injury report. I tell you guys, my eyes strain every single day trying to read that thing. But they are obviously really hobbled and banged up. I like leaning towards New Orleans in this spot just because I do think that they're obviously, even without Zion, a better team and have more caliber players. They've also won 5 of their last 6 games, have only covered in 3 of those, I believe, or 3 or 4 of those, which is good. But on the road here, they're in the middle of a road trip. The only thing that concerns me is that they're flying back and have a homestand coming up. So it's like, is that in their head? Do they just sleepwalk through this game? Potentially, but this Memphis team just not looking all that great. Now, against the spread, I'll give them credit, but that was like that's a tail end of their last 10. In their last 5 games here, they're just 1-4 against the spread. So they look good if you look at them from like a 10 or 15 game sample size, but as of late, not really looking good against the spread. So that's kind of why I split my mind up and make it about New Orleans in this spot. But I do give the concern that, they're done with this road trip after this game. Do they sleepwalk through this? Hopefully not. In terms of a total, 223 is what it's sitting at right now. I think this one goes just over. In a game, when New Orleans wants to score, they seem to be able to, and they've done that against some sluggish teams like Toronto, like the Clippers, excuse me. Even the Lakers, they put up 120 plus. So though I wouldn't say New Orleans is playing with crazy pace, I do think they're playing some efficient basketball, and I don't really see where Memphis is able to stop them. Now, Memphis obviously is kind of that grinded out team. They have some good defenders, but it's like Jaren Jackson is their shot blocker there, and that's not, I don't want to say that's it, but who's going to stop McCollum, Ingram, Zion? Like, I don't really see much of it. So I lean towards the over, hoping that Pelicans, obviously, because I like them -9.2, kind of carry the weight. Now, from a player prop perspective, you guys are going to hate it because it's a 3-point play. Don't mind looking at Herb Jones over 1.5 3-pointers made, because it is plus 122 right now over on FanDuel. So I do think that that's some value for a guy that's hit this in 7 of his last 10 games. He's shooting nearly 5 or 4.5. So, if you want to round up 5, but 4.5 threes per game over his last 10, making over 50% of them. So with that math, and if that maths, we should be able to have 4 attempts and him make 2 for plus money because he's shooting over 50%. And this is a Memphis team that struggles with the corner 3. Herb Jones, that's where he's going to shoot his threes from. And he's hitting them at a decent rate here. So, yeah, I don't mind that spot. In terms of, like, who's shooting the corner 3s, it is him. He's leading the team in field goal attempts from the corner over the last 10 games for the Pelicans. All right, we got the Bucks taking on the Nuggets here. Bucks 1-point favorites at home. Total sitting at 232.5. I know that I continue to say the Bucks are on my do not bet list and do not even consider list, but I also keep saying that I don't really love Denver on the road this season, right? They've covered just 37% of games on the road. They have a straight up record that's 15-13, so that's good. But the Bucks, though it's not against the spread, 22-6 at home this year, coming off of a dominant win over Charlotte. Take that as far as you want. But they did bounce back after a tough loss to Minnesota. I guess I'll take a peek at the Bucks in this one, which sound the psycho alert alarm. Something to note here, though, we do have Lillard and Giannis on the injury report as probable. This should be a game they play for. No Chris Middleton. But, as shitty as it is to say, I don't think Middleton is as impactful as he has been in years past for the Bucks. Also, we have Michael Porter Jr. and Caldwell Pope also on the injury report for the Nuggets. But yeah, this is another one of those games like the one we talked about a few games ago. Like, if you are on Denver, I'm not trying to talk you off it. I just, for whatever reason, seem to, glutton for punishment in betting the Bucks here. So I'll lean towards them minus the 1. In terms of a total, I think this one stays under. Like, this should have that playoffy defensive vibe, I'd think. They did play earlier in the season here. Excuse me. And that was, it was about a month ago or so, right? And that game was a 113-107 finish, so very low scoring. I think this one follows that same sort of path. Now, I have a player prop that I do really like in this spot. And we're looking at Brook Lopez, over 1.5 3-pointers made. This line was at 2.5 for, a couple games. And all of a sudden they brought it back down to earth because, only had 1 3 in their last game. But that was 1 3 through 26 minutes. If he plays a full minute allotment, which he's only been playing 25, 26 minutes as of late, I still like him to be able to make 2 in a big game like this. And speaking of a big game, take a guess. Who allows the most threes to opposing centers over the last 7 games? The damn Nuggets. So I'm going ahead and leaning towards Brook Lopez over 1.5 3-pointers made. I know you guys seem to hate when I pull the trigger on the 3-pointers, but you know what? I like them, and I like the spot for it. So yeah, give me that. Everything lines up for Brook Lopez to be able to make 2 threes if he shoots 4 or 5. Like, I'm hoping for that quantity. If we don't get that, then yeah, I don't think he necessarily goes 2 for 2. But hey, it would still cash for us. So keep an eye on the pinned comment. Definitely has a chance of being a final play. By the way, guys, if you want to pick up some merch, head over to fademe.store. I'm rocking the Gambler Collection hat right now. Tons of cool stuff over there, like these new releases that we have, the Scared Money Don't Make Money hoodie and tee, and then the Fade Me wall tag hoodie as well. Really, really cool designs. But like I said, we have tons of stuff out right now. The Gambler Collection, which I'm rocking the hat here, but super good quality stuff, guys. We put it at a manageable price, and it helps support what we're doing here. So if you do want to consider picking up some merch, head over to fademe.store. Go get yourself something. It's a great way to support what we're doing, like I said. But yeah, just wanted to take that quick break to shout out the store because we put a lot of effort into that, and you guys have been really rocking with it, which I appreciate. But let's go ahead and get back into the games. Dallas, 14.5-point favorites over Washington. That's almost like way too much for me to consider, but I don't think that I would really be comfortable looking at the Washington side and being like, yeah, I'm gonna lean towards them. So I'll lean towards Dallas, but it really is going to stay as a lean. Now, from a total perspective, this is 248, and that seems like it's a super high number, but it really shouldn't be for these two teams the way that they play. They have been trending under of this number, which is unfortunate, but I still like the over in this spot. From an injury perspective, you do have Luka and Kyrie on the injury report, so obviously if they don't play, I think less points are scored in this game, but keep an eye on that. I don't mind the over, and that's probably the only thing I really look at in this game altogether. No player props really tickle my fancy either. All right, Utah taking on the Warriors here. Essentially a pick 'em, but Utah is getting a point right now. Total sitting at 241.5. This one, I don't necessarily think a bunch of points are going to be scored in this game, so I'm going to lean towards the under. Now, when I say a bunch, I think this finishes probably in like the mid 230s, so still a decent scoring game, but just not like 250 or something like that, like this total may suggest here. You do have two teams that are definitely fast-paced teams. Last 10 games, Golden State ranked 7th, Utah ranked 11th, but the transition offense isn't like spectacular for either one of these teams. So if they do get into transition, it's like I don't think that they score like my saying I like to say, a hot knife going through hot butter, right? So yeah, I'm gonna slightly lean towards the under. Now from a spread perspective and just a game pick perspective, I think I lean towards Utah here at home. This is a Utah team that's covered in 75% of the games at home this season, so you got to give them credit there. The Warriors are a good road cover team, so I don't want to knock that, but I'm taking Utah in this spot. I think that they match up fairly well. And then from a player prop perspective, Andrew Wiggins, yes, he's had his ups and downs of being involved, but I like his over 18.5 PRA. Also don't mind his points plus assists. Those are the stats that the Utah Jazz really struggle in terms of giving up to small forwards, but I think he has a few rebounds in him as well that could help this number out. He's hit it in 7 of his last 10 and in 3 straight games. Last time he played against the Jazz, which we're dating it to last season, but 34 PRA. He had 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. So again, a lot different of a Golden State team, and he probably played more minutes in that game, but I do still think, and a different Utah team for sure, but I do still think the 3 games that he's now covered in, if he gets involved, he should be able to get to 18.5, across the stat board. Clippers taking on the Timberwolves here. Cut to the chase. I like the Clippers at home. I do think that this is a good spot for them. The Minnesota Timberwolves are obviously a really good basketball team. They're a better, way better home team than they are road team here. In terms of their cover rate when they're on the road, just 46% of games. Clippers covering at a 56% rate when at home. So I do like looking at that. And Minnesota just came off of a massive win against the Bucks. As of late, if you look at their games, when they have these massive wins, they actually have a letdown game next game. So they beat Dallas 121-87, right? Massive win. They then lose to Orlando straight up as 7-point favorites. They bounce back and beat Houston 111-90, right? They then lose in, what was it, double overtime. They blew a 20-point lead or so to Chicago. And then, like I just said, Milwaukee was their next game. They blow out Milwaukee. If this trend continues, it's big win, followed by a letdown. Big win, followed by a letdown. And this situation just isn't that great for them. They have the Clippers at home. This Clippers team is obviously a really good team, winning 8 of their last 10. They've covered in 6 of those. But the games that they haven't covered in, 17 points against the Detroit Pistons, 11.5 points against the Detroit Pistons. Both games that they win, but not covering that big number. So it is worth obviously noting there. This 4-point spread, I have no real concerns with the Clippers going out and being able to do that. They've covered that 4.5-point spread in 8 of their last 10 games technically. Now, I like to give you guys both sides of it, right? Minnesota has covered, if their line for the last 10 games were to be 4.5 plus 4.5, they've covered that in 9 of their last 10. So yes, that is obviously a good spot for them. But that being said, this is a Clippers team probably better than any of those, most of those teams that they have played. Total sitting at 222. I'm kind of torn on this one, so take my thoughts here with a grain of salt, but I'm going to lean towards the over because it is a low number, and I think the Clippers will try to prove pretty early, and I guess often, that they can score on this team. Now, the Clippers overs have not been trending. They've cashed 3 unders in their last 4 games, and the only one that they did hit the over in was against Atlanta, who's the fastest team in the league right now, right? So kind of putting my foot in my mouth here, but I still like the over 222. And then no real player props, unfortunately, because I think it's going to be a good game. No real player props jumping off the page to me in this spot, but we'll add something in the pinned comments if we can find something for this game. But I dug and dug, nothing really jumping off the page to me. But guys, it's gonna wrap for today. Hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment 27 as we're about to approach the 27-minute mark. And yeah, that means, I know I say it all the time, but that means so much when I see people commenting 27, because it's like, damn, you really rocked with me for 27 minutes. That's awesome. And I love the comments that this is part of my routine, and I love these videos. And it's like, yeah, we're a little slow and groggy this morning because Super Bowl last night, but we're still getting up and grinding and putting out the content, which I plan to always do. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit that like button if you have not yet. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.